Good day and welcome to this Focus On with me, Devon Rarmer. As the world races to meet the net zero emissions target by 2050, while simultaneously trying to reach the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal 7 by 2030, reports indicate that Africa requires nearly $25 billion per year to meet this goal. What can be done to reshape the continent's energy development trajectory? NJ Ayuk, the Executive Chairman of the African Energy Chambers, joins me now in studio to explore this in more detail as government officials and key policymakers head towards the annual Africa Energy Week in Cape Town, South Africa on the 16th of October. The theme for the week is the African Energy Renaissance, prioritizing energy poverty, people, planet, industrialization and free markets. NJ, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
On that note, what can we expect from this year's event, as this is the third annual event?
I think this year is going to be a big focus. Is going to be on focus on financing and focus on driving energy growth within Africa. There is too many projects without financing, and there's too much financing without projects. We have to bridge that divide and really get financing going into African projects. You're looking at our energy poverty numbers. They continue to increase post-COVID. You're looking at lack of industrialization continue to increase, but we're also dealing with an Africa that is exporting so much natural gas into Europe and other continents, which that's good, but we've got to still be able to really see at African Energy Week this year how we encourage intra-Africa trade, working with our international investors and really driving that. But at the end of the day, it's going to be markets. And when we talk free markets, we're saying it's not just saying opening up the markets, but also creating that enabling environment, because a free and structured market is essential. But an enabling environment is even more critical if we have to meet this African challenge and get with these sustainable development goals that we need to really meet within the African continent.
But how are you going to steer that investment? Because globally, everybody is financially quite tight. Not to mention we have these geopolitical tension that's rising up. So how exactly will you be able to steer those conversations? Or are these the kind of tough conversations that you're looking forward to?
I think one of the beauty of African Energy Week is that we've been able to take some of the toughest conversations and really drive that. We have not shied away from where we stand when it comes to energy development. We also recognize issues around the global tsunami, around climate, and also seeing issues around the fossil fuels. That is a concern. But we also believe that the demonization of the fossil fuel industry, oil and gas, coal, and natural gas, it's wrong. Because when we do that, we're crippling markets. Consumers every day at the pump, they're paying too much for it. So we want to be able to drive conversations and bring some common sense and pragmatism to this. Because when common sense and pragmatism gets on the table and we think in those ways, then we're able to drive up investment. Then we're able to see it's about jobs. It's about reducing gas prices at the pump. It's about creating an environment where we can beat load shedding, because for Africa, it is real. If you're in London or you're in New York or you're in California, you don't understand load shedding. So it's quite easy for you to say, you guys should use electric vehicles. I think we get criticized sometimes to say, we want 65% of the cars in Africa by 2030 to be electric vehicles. Wait a minute. If you don't, how are you going to drive a Tesla without electricity? You're going to have to use a diesel generator to power that Tesla. So we need to really bring some common sense, and I think that's what the chamber has been able to do, to bring some common sense in the room and bring some adult conversation. But pragmatism must guide the way forward. But we have to do something even better as Africans. We need to be accountable. Personal responsibility, limited government, fiscalities, taxes, because you're not competing for financing just between Mozambique and South Africa or Nigeria and Ghana.
There should be a collaboration between the countries.
There should be a collaboration, because the chokehold on financing is a problem. So you're competing with fiscal terms that are so good in the Gulf of Mexico, the US, fiscal terms that are so good in Guyana or Suriname. We got to bring that dollars back into Africa. But also we got to look at how we reduce our cost of producing natural gas or even renewables. So we got to look at efficiency, new technologies, but at the same time ensure that Africans are in. But we need to rally that financing. It is tough, but we need to bring everyone to the table to look at it. And I think that's what I'm excited about Africa Energy Week this year.
Realistically speaking, like, as you mentioned, fossil fuel still plays a big part in our energy sector. So the jump between renewable energy and still using fossil fuels is quite large, though. How do we bridge that gap? Is it based on finances that you spoke about, or is it policies that need to change and adapt accordingly?
We need to first start thinking about net energy poverty before we get to net zero. Because if we beat energy poverty, we get to net zero. That's our way to net zero. When the crisis in Ukraine broke out, Europe was in crisis. Europe used everything to get out of the crisis. They came to South Africa to use coal out of South Africa. They used natural gas out of Africa. They had all the money to use solar panels everywhere, but they didn't. They realized that you need that base load energy in order to be able to drive the economy, drive their industries, their manufacturing facilities, their factories and everything, and keep their houses warm. But even with that, the price is still skyrocketed. Africa has to do the same. They even changed their rules on natural gas, and they said natural gas is green energy. Right now, natural gas, according to the European Union, is green energy. Nuclear is green energy. But that allowed their financial institutions to be able to finance that. But for Africa, no. We need to be able to call on the African Union, African institutions, to define natural gas as green energy so we can be able to finance it. It's the cleanest, friendliest fossil fuel out there that we can use. Imagine abundant natural gas in this continent. In Mozambique, that could go from zero to the third largest producer. Use that gas to power Africa. Use that gas to manufacture in Africa. But also, we go into Ukraine and Russia to beg for grain. What did the Ukrainians and Russians did? 20 years ago, they were net importers of grain. Now they export 30 years. We can use natural gas, drive up petrochemicals, power our agricultural facilities, produce grain in Africa so we don't have to go back for food from developed countries. But bigger than that, this transition is going to have to be driven by Africa. We are going to have to set up our own timelines, and we are going to have to use our own resources to do it. The idea that we have to wait to expect money, handouts, and foreign aid to get to the net zero is not going to happen. We need to be able to determine that and stop being the continent that is going to back its way out of this transition. We should be able to finance our way out of this transition, look at young people, and drive innovation within this continent. There is success in this continent, and I believe that we can do it.
Do you find gas exploration as one of those options to leverage on a situation?
Absolutely. Gas is going to be so important. We say gas, baby, gas. If you get gas going, you are going to manufacture. I wish Africa discovered gas before it discovered oil, because there's a lot of byproducts around gas. So you get your petrochemicals, urea, ammonia, NPK, fertilizer plants that you'll be able to drive to really power agricultural bases, to really drive manufacturing. That is so key. But we also have to take into consideration some key things. There's some hard truth that we have to look. Our tax systems are really bad. We tax people too damn much, and it makes it difficult. We have to deal with transparency issues, corruption, mismanagement of these resources. What happened in the past cannot repeat itself right now. But we also have to be willing to deal with the issues around visas. We need to get people moving within Africa. You can't tell me about intercontinental trade and trading gas within Africa and people can't move. But then we also have to deal with those hard issues that we as Africans sometimes kind of shy away from and don't want to talk about. Resource nationalism. The idea of resource nationalism, where we say, it's my country, and it belongs to mine, it's my resources, and we get resource nationalists, and we have all these crippling policies. It is wrong. It is bad. And so we need to be able to address those elephants in the room and really be able to say, this kind of isms or ills, we need to kick them out if we are going to get serious. And this is time where leadership has to get serious. And you know, the chamber, we've never been shy to speak in our mind on these issues, but we think resource nationalism, we got to deal with that issue. I know it's not going to make me popular. It's a very uncomfortable issue. Most Africans don't like it, but it is the truth, and we need to deal with those issues because nobody's going to put money in a place where you're saying you want to take everything and they go with none. That is not right. We got to protect investors. We got to stop demonizing energy producers. They are our friends. And you know what? Those same energy producers are producing in Norway, the United Kingdom, in Germany, in the United States. They're not being demonized out there. Why should we in Africa be demonizing those that invest so much money to produce energy that we need?
I understand you're going to have 2 heads of state at the very least at this conference. How are you going to get these leaders in the room with your investors and your stakeholders to make or to turn this conversation not into a talk shop, but into a reality?
The first thing we're going to do about which the leaders are going to see, the first thing is that we're going to sign deals. We are working with Afrexim, with energy companies. There is going to be massive commitment of deals that goes into exploration, because you can't produce gas or produce oil without exploring. So we're going to focus on exploration, and we're going to sign deals around exploration. We're going to sign deals which are you're going to see multi-billion-dollar deals, that's for sure. A lot of deals that goes around with energy developments from green hydrogen, oil and gas, coal, and even a lot of renewables. So that's good. It's happening right here in Africa, and that is very important. So it's going to be the biggest deal-making signings and platforms that you'll see in this continent. But bigger than that, we're going to have closed room meetings and open sessions where investors, whether it is companies coming from out of the United States, Europe, the Middle East, with African leaders discussing, and we will still announce more deals. But we're not going to be a talk shop. We're tired of talk shops in Africa. We want to really get people moving, because so many young people in this continent, they want more. That's why you're seeing coups happening across the continent. That's why you're seeing a lot the unhappiness and people crossing the Mediterranean to go to Europe. So we need to be drivers of that change. Not in coup d'etats, but we believe in the ballot box and signing deals that would progress Africa and really getting trade, and we're harnessing innovation within this continent.
I would really like to take the conversation a bit further, but we have unfortunately run out of time. I'm really looking forward to this conference. Thank you so much.
Thank you so very much for having me.
I want to thank my guest, the Executive Chairman of the African Energy Chamber, NJ Ayuk, for joining me in studio today. And that's it. Until next time, it's goodbye.